So that's going to be the main thing tonight. We'll just either go around the room or I'll go down the list or however we want to do it, and give everybody a chance. It really should only be 5, 6 minutes or so. So we're not looking for a huge presentation, but as I put in the homework write up, basically sort of addressing four things. What was the problem that you were trying to address? What elements of games did you incorporate into the activity? How did the actual implementation go? Just sort of describe what actually happened when you implemented it. And then just sort of a reflective piece about, was it effective? Are there things you would have changed or done differently if you were to do it again? Basically mirroring what you put in the wiki, just kind of hitting the high points there. And I'll just give everybody a chance to hear what everybody else tried doing. And with these types of activities, these are real easy things to adapt, to bring into different situations. Oftentimes it's not just applicable to a math class. A lot of times these things are things that can be applied and very easily adapted to all sorts of settings. So you might hear a thing or two tonight from somebody else that maybe goes, oh yeah, that's a problem I've been having too. Maybe I'll give that a shot. So that's the main thing tonight. I don't really have anything beyond that. I will talk at the end, but the main thing for next week is just that the games are due next week. So that's the actual physical game in its completedness with instructions and all that. It's making sure that everything that's online in terms of the instructional design and the flow chart and all that stuff has been posted. And preparing your group's presentation for next week, where again, there's sort of 4 parts to the presentation, and the idea was that one person in each group takes one of those 4 parts and does 5 or 6 minutes or so on that. All right. So we may as well just start. And I don't know if it's helpful. I was just going to go straight down this list, obviously skipping the folks that we don't have, but I know I don't want to put you on the spot, Sarah, but I don't know if you want to go first since
That's okay, that's fine.
Okay, just because you do have to get out of here at some point to deal with a broken car. So yeah, and what I'll do is not that you have to refer to it or anything, but I'll just kind of pull up the page up here as well. Yeah, go ahead.
So the problem in my classroom is that my students take forever to clean up after snack. They make huge messes, there's always spills. I have flexible seating in my classroom, so it's really important that their spot's cleaned up because they may be going to a different spot. It's not like it's their own personal desk either. So not only is it like a mess, but it takes them forever to put their things away and get back to the carpet, and it's eating up like my mini lesson time every day. And it seems like no matter how many times I reteach, it's just not working. So that's what I decided to make into a game. And so I had a set of rules that I laid out for them, which I'll go over in a second. And basically the competing agents are rows. So on my carpet, I had 5 different colored rows, and the kids sit in rows. And so like the yellow row, I call the yellow marshmallows, the greens and the green beans. And so they know who's in their row. And because of the flexible seating, that was kind of a challenge for me to figure out exactly because they're always moving around. So I guess I'll just kind of lay out what the game was. They had to make sure that everything was put away, that their pencils, that their crayons, scissors, everything was in its correct spot on the table, that there was no food at the table, if there was cushions or chairs, that their specific spot, that everything was put away. And I have like taken pictures of what each table should look like so that they visually check, like, is this what it's supposed to look like? And so the first row on the carpet, sitting quietly, would get a point, but if there was still a table that wasn't cleaned up, it didn't count. So it was kind of, you
have to watch each other.
right, because initially I knew that I would have those kids like throw their snack from across the room and run to the carpet when everything is still a mess. So teamwork was definitely a component of that, and if I saw them being unkind to someone else, their point was forfeited. So each, depending on whichever row was first, the row got 2 points for first, 1 point second, and then the other rows didn't get a point. And so at the end of the week, whichever row had the most points would earn some kind of prize that we decided as a class on I have like a prize menu. It went really, really well. Normally it takes about 5 to 7 minutes for them to clean up, which might not sound like a huge amount of time, but it really is a huge amount of time.
Hold the plank for that one.
Yeah. And on the first day, it was under 2 minutes that they were all done and ready, and actually my room looked great, and they weren't attacking each other, which I was a little nervous about, and I can't remember who it was, but someone, I think it was Steve, had brought up like the safety component, like making sure they're not like diving on top of each other to make it there.
That's me.
So-
I want to win it all.
So that piece of it too was good. Just kind of laying out those ground rules ahead of time. And actually they did so well, and I put this in my reflection that I added another piece to it, or moving forward, is that if the whole class is ready at, under 2 minutes, then the whole class would, if we do that every day, the whole class gets, like an extra fun Friday time or a free snack time, because it's a working snack, so they have work that they have to do, not my choice, but they have to do work during snack, and so they would earn a free snack. So it went really well, and I'm gonna keep doing it.
Yeah, so what's interesting is the expectations didn't change,
Right.
right? You were expecting them to still do all the things you were expecting them to do before, just that one layer of a couple of gaming elements suddenly shifts the whole thing, and they want to start doing it at that point. So, all right, cool. Yeah, that sounds like a very successful experience. So. Thank you. Yeah. So I don't know. Should I just then? Is there anyone else who needs to get out of here early? I think anyone. So I could just, for ease, just kind of run down this list here if Kayla doesn't mind going next. So I'll pull that up and.
So for my problem, I have juniors and freshmen in all the classes that I teach, except really though. And they just have a huge issue with cell phones. It's a problem. I tried using the little pockets and they have a set number that they have to put their phone in the pocket. It worked a little bit, but then I kind of stopped enforcing it, and then also they would leave their phones in the pocket, and then I'd have all these phones. I didn't want to get be accountable for them.
You know what I always said was if a student has a nicer phone than the teacher has, then the teacher should be allowed to swap phones with the students. Swap out the SIM cards. Okay, that's my phone now.
Yeah, so surprisingly, students did leave their phones, and I didn't want to feel responsible keeping track of it. So what I decided to do was to just have them put it away on their own. So I had a chart class list of everyone in that class that I had that period. And it was a regular 5-day week. They would start off with 5 points. So each student would start out with 5 points. If I saw them with their cell phone out, they would lose a point. So they could lose more than 1 point in a day. So if they made it to Friday or the end of the week, it was a shorter week, then they would get some sort of prize. So this week, all my classes have quizzes, so I was going to give them like an extra couple points or whatever on their quiz. I only did it Monday, Tuesday, and today because of break. So far, pretty well. It seemed to go over a little bit better with the freshmen than the juniors, but so far, so good.
Yeah, and that might be an important point too. Is the same, and I don't know if anyone else found this, but sometimes the same reward or whatever works for one group, it doesn't work for another group, and that could be age related or it could be whatever related. But
it'd be interesting to see if it continues, if I continue to use this, like next week or the week after.
Yeah.
The end of the year. I don't know.
or if they start to.
Yeah, they just don't care.
Now, what if they lose their points? Was there any sort of a penalty for that, or was it just about getting something if they kept their points?
Yeah, it was more in my end some reason if they did something, or if they could go negative points, which I thought about, but I don't know if that's even worse. I don't know. Just some things to think about.
Like you like burn their phone at the stake or something.
Yeah. Burn
That
it
was
in
a
effigy.
visual.
Yeah. So, all right. So went okay as far as in process.
So far.
Okay. All right. Let's see, Stephen.
Sure. So my problem was in my PE classes, so kind of picture this. I have 6 groups. I call them color groups, and usually to start the day we do a warm up, and it's usually some sort of fitness exercise. And the problem with that is I try to keep it short because the 6 stations each have a different fitness exercise, and they're doing it for about a minute, and then they'll rotate to the next group. They'll do a different fitness exercise. So it's short, sweet. The problem is I get a lot of kids that show max effort, but then I get a few kids that just get bored. So it's always a new fitness exercise every week at the groups, but they're not seeing like immediate results. You can tell them all about fitness, they're just not seeing that like you're not getting stronger immediately. So it's hard to kind of sell it to them. So I figured if I can camouflage fitness exercise into the game, then it would be a lot more fun for them. So I created I called it Fitness Tic-Tac-Toe. And I used, instead of a tic-tac-toe board, I had 9 hula hoops. I had 3 in a row, 3 and 3. And I had a starting spot, which was a poly spot, and the students played head on. So it was 1 against 1, and red bean bags and blue bean bags, and they would toss it from the spot into the hula hoop. Now in the hula hoops were 9 different fitness exercises. I use these little cards. Like this says sit-ups, and it shows them how to do it, toe touches. And if they made the shot in the hula hoop, they got to keep it. But in order to keep it there, they had to do the fitness exercise. So they would get the card, they would do it, and then the next person would go. If you missed it, then the next person would go. You wouldn't get to keep it. You didn't do any fitness exercise, and the next person would go. Obviously it was, competing agents were head to head. The rules of the game were very similar to tic-tac-toe, but with a little twist and flair. And just in terms of the gameplay itself, I noticed that the kids were, they were having a lot of fun playing it. I let them play for about 5 minutes because it was easy to explain it. And then I stopped them and I put them against someone different, so they were playing against someone different. In terms of like seeing if they enjoyed it or if it made it more fun to do the fitness exercise, I use clickers in my gym. They're like these, they're little cards. So on one of the clickers questions was, did you enjoy this activity more than regular tic-tac-toe? And I had 18 to 20 kids say that they enjoyed it more. So it was kind of like my, my conclusion or my to close the closure in class. So,
Yep.
it was something new. I kind of made it up on the spot, so it seemed like a lot of fun. So.
Did you? I'm just sort of thinking through. If there's somebody who doesn't really care, did you see any evidence of somebody like just purposefully throwing the game like, oh well, if I don't get anything, I don't have to do any warm-ups or.
For this particular class, I didn't, but I did it because it's hard for me to like swap out equipment like all the time. So I did it. This was a focus for one class,
Mm-hmm.
but I did notice that with some of the other classes. Some of the kids that aren't as motivated, kind of just I can't tell if they're like faking missing the shot. But,
Right.
Like, you scratch your head.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was that could have been an issue. Not with this particular class,
Yeah.
but yeah.
How does anybody have like how could you address that? And if
If I see,
I mean-
You're
I mean-
perfect.
This is public education, you have to be nice.
no, I'm thinking through it myself. Like if you want to get them doing the warm-ups.
like before the activity even started, like I use Team Shake. So I try when I pair things up, it's an app that pairs them up, and you like rank the kids. The kids don't see this, but you rank them based on their ability level. So like basically when you said you want 1-against-1, it'll pair them up like that. Very high level skilled kids will play head to head, and the low skilled children will play head to head. So hopefully playing someone of your ability level will hopefully make it more intense. You'll be more in the game. You won't just get crushed by like the best in the
Yeah.
class, you know? So but you are still gonna get that, like
Yeah.
Could
No,
you
I
make
just-
your opponent do the exercise, so if you get it into the,
yeah, you could
then say like you do your 10 push-ups and I get to keep my.
and I get to keep that card. That's a good
I
twist
like
too.
that.
Change it up a little bit.
Yeah.
It's not bad, it's a good idea.
So how large is, I'm just curious, like I'm trying to, how large is a class for you? So how many?
This
groups
particular-
do you have?
Oh, I got it.
Oh,
I
okay.
have a
Like,
lot
wow,
of
that's a
equipment.
And you were like in the
Wow.
big gym, like
Yeah,
everybody
yeah.
was, okay.
My this particular class is single, but my gym is made for like double classes.
Okay,
I have enough equipment for like double classes. So,
okay.
Was it elementary or the middle?
Elementary.
Hmm.
Little ones.
Okay.
Yeah.
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 All right. Cool. That's yeah. All right. Let's see, Alana.
The problem that I had was kind of similar to Sarah's, but a little different. I teach preschool, so the problem that I had was my kids take a really long time to complete any routine, and a lot of them need a lot of help to do it. Not a lot of them, but some of them need more help than others to stay focused and not be distracted and complete all the steps. And so the first thing they have to do when they arrive at school is a routine that probably all steps included should take, I don't know, like 8 minutes maybe. They're waiting for the bathroom and everything like that. So some kids get really distracted and it takes them forever to do it, and it's like 15 minutes, like double how long I think they should take. So in order to motivate them to try to stay on task, I added an end game and competing agents. I guess I did 2 elements. So all the kids were basically competing against the clock. So I set a timer and I told them everyone needs to finish all their jobs by the time the timer goes off, and if it does, then you'll get a dance break as a reward. So that was the end game component. They really liked dance break, so it was good. It was motivating for them.
That's awesome.
And
I
then
think every
after-
class needs a
It's
dance.
a
We
dance
should have a
break.
dance.
Yeah.
It also like kind of sets me up for we have circle time after, so to give them physical movement breaks to my benefit at the
Yeah.
same time. So of course there were still students that still needed help to stay focused and on task because of the nature of their age, or some of them do have identified needs, so a little bit of both I think. I don't think that in a preschool classroom you'll ever get everyone
Yeah.
to do the same thing at the same time as efficiently as possible, but definitely was a little bit better with those elements infused in. One thing that I would consider for the future is trying to vary the reward, so and maybe add element of chance in, so like a wheel to spin or like popsicle sticks and pick one out of the jar, so there's still like an element of surprise to it, which is exciting for this age group as well. But I thought it was pretty successful overall. For the most part. That was basically it. It was pretty
Okay.
easy.
Yeah, and that's another thing. I mean, obviously, with a much younger age group, it's not going to be as complicated. Like you can't. There's going to be diminishing returns if you start having to roll out the scroll of rules, you know, and here's what you got to do. Like, it can be, and that's one of the nice things about gamification is that there's not really. It can be scaled to just about any size. It can be one tiny little element you add very simply, all the way up to. I mean, as we saw from that one website where you're like creating an entire virtual world that's reinforcing behaviors in your classroom and hit points and experience points and all that. But so
Say something.
yeah, there you go. Your students can. All right, I guess we're up to Melissa D.
So I'm finding a trend or pattern, but I did also pick the behavior of like being ready on time to start class. You wouldn't think you'd have to do it so much with, seniors. I have 3 classes of seniors and 2 classes of sophomores. But in particular, you'd be surprised how tired and disconnected teenagers are in the morning, and then later in the afternoon, how spazzy they get and they really are just never ready to like sit down and start work.
Yeah.
We also only have 45-minute class periods. We're not on a block schedule, so even just losing, a few minutes, like you had said, it adds up to a lot of instructional time. So I had contemplating. I had added competing agents because I set the classes against each other, and I also put rules in and an end game. So the rules were, when I was, to start class, that everybody would be in their seat. They would not have their cell phones on, so I totally connected with Kayla, had mentioned the cell phones. And unfortunately, this is another issue, which is one of the reasons why being prepared for class is a problem. We have a uniform policy at my school. So a lot of the kids are constantly not in the appropriate uniform, and as the authority figure in the classroom, you have to address that. So kids who wear hoodies, or kids who have headphones on, or kids who are in sweatpants or whatever, or leggings, you're supposed to like address all of those items. So I always have to say, okay, everybody, I see people out of uniform. Please take care of the issue. Then I wait 30 seconds because they'll know, then I'll call them out. So first I just say it to everybody, and then when they don't do it, then I have to go around.
Oh my God, what a
And
waste
tell
of time,
everybody.
right?
Yeah.
It's such a waste of time.
Take off your hoodie. Please put your phone away. So then and because it's very tedious. So
And then
In
you're
part-
wrapping your class up
Yeah,
by that
yeah,
point.
no kidding.
in
Yeah.
particular, I will say though, when I was thinking about it, 8 period is definitely by far the worst, and that's my seniors, one of my senior groups. But they're also like a little bit lower academically compared to the others. So I had concern, like I didn't know if it would be fair, which in my reflection is something that I addressed because in the end, and then I put a big football, I have a football bulletin board. And so I put little stars to like see who could like reach the touchdown first. And then I told them each class got to pick a name. So I told them, whatever their names were, to try to just kind of promote more of like a competition in a game setting and things like that. So I started it on when we got back. Our school got back from break on the 15th of April. And I'm still doing it now because nobody's had a touchdown yet. So, so like they're going, and I did some data. I think if you could scroll down, like I think I calculated that I was doing it like, where's the data? Yeah. So since I've been doing it,
Oh, there
since
we go.
then,
Yeah, okay.
I've had 39 total class periods because we've done it for 7 days, and I teach 5 classes, but then I also have 2 double labs, so that was an extra 4 class periods. But it says that I was able to give out 16 gold stars without me having to ask, and I could start class right away. So I figure like with the waste time between 1 and 5 minutes, that saved me at least 30 to 40 minutes within the 7 days. That's like
No,
sporadically, right? Between and some classes didn't get the stars, but like overall, that's 30 to 4 minutes of instruction that I saved. So even though like I was expecting it to be like I'm always grandiose. Like I'm like everybody's gonna do it. It's gonna be fabulous. But I did.
It's gonna be fabulous.
But I was like, okay, I got about a half an hour back, which was pretty good. The one thing I will say though in reflection is that I had my A period basically just quit. Because they got so far behind, they could like see the other teams, and then they were just like, and it wasn't worth it to them.
Mhm.
So the phones is a huge thing because like they're listening to music, and they're like, so for them to put that away, it's like, and the older
Yeah.
ones, are even
Maybe
worse.
you wait for the big reveal.
Yeah.
Like hide
Is your school
the
like-
results
Yeah.
until the end,
Yeah, and I did have a reward. So the first kids to get the touchdown, they could choose from either a movie day or, but they haven't gotten it yet. Or I was gonna think of something else, but I was thinking about like a movie day. Which would
Jeez.
benefit
Wonder if
each
you
of
could-
them. Great papers.
If
I
Works out for everybody.
So win.
I don't know if like adjusting the criteria for that A period group,
Yeah.
like rather than having a bunch, like okay, what's the main one that's the issue? Maybe it's the phones,
Yeah.
and say, okay, guys, we're not going to worry about the rest. If you want to get your points or whatever for today or your star for today, let's just focus on the phones thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that would I don't know if anyone else has.
Yeah. No, I
Oh,
That's
that's
the
definitely
good.
biggest
agree.
thing.
And philosophically though too, like these are expectations that like, especially as seniors,
Yeah,
getting
yeah,
ready
yeah.
sophomores. So I also too, I was kind of like, I'm giving you a reward to put your cell phone away so that you can be ready to learn. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
So, but I did it.
Yeah. I mean, it's
That is.
it
Especially at
is.
that
I mean, it's
age.
part of the whole PBIS mentality though, is
Yes.
that it's not. It feels like giving out rewards for every little thing, but at the same time, the idea is
Yeah.
rather than punishing bad behaviors, that if you reward good behaviors, then intrinsically they start to want to just do the good behaviors, and the bad behaviors will go away.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know how many schools explicitly address PBIS these days, but I know our school has a whole ticket, like raffle ticket kind of a thing, where each teacher has a little envelope of tickets, and if they catch a student doing something that demonstrates then the kid gets the raffle ticket, and they can take it down to the office and put it in a drawing for something or other. So that's kind of our for our high school. That's what we do. But it's
I also track like individually, like if I heard other kids, and I forget who mentioned that, like if I heard other kids encouraging one another and like helping out, then I would like throw them like an extra point or something like that. But that worked better with my sophomores than my older kids.
Huh.
The seniors are just kind of like
they don't want to help. They don't want to help out anyone anymore.
I didn't start it until after spring break.
Right.
So they're coming back like
they're halfway out the door at this point. Yeah.
So I don't know. But
Yeah, it would be interesting to see if you started from the beginning. I mean, like you
that
said,
was
if
in
you
my
start
reflection.
if you start at the beginning of the year
Yeah.
and built it in from the start to see whether
Yeah. Yep.
You know.
No, that was in my.
so, yeah, you had okay. All right. Yeah,
Oh.
it's interesting that so many of these, at least so far, are behavioral in nature. All right, so we're up to Tanya.
So, those of you in education know that every year you have to come up with your classroom objectives. And they have to be school-based as well as department-based. So, the English department is getting kids ready to take the SAT. So, we are trying to build reading stamina as well as learning skills like finding main idea and important information and things like that. So you give the kids a paper and they will have to like annotate, find the main idea, find all these important pieces of information. And it's tedious and they're boring. And especially our kids are not readers. Like, you know, a lot of kids are, they enjoy reading, they like things. Mine, it is a chore and it just is awful. So what I decided to do is so the need is to improve reading and to be able to find the main idea and important facts. What I decided to do was to have them read, and each time I will increase the amount they have to read and the time they're going to read, as well as writing down important pieces of information. So to make it fun, to gamify it, what I did is while they were reading, to take notes and to write Jeopardy questions. And while they were doing that, they have to do, and you know Jeopardy, the 100-point question, 200, 300, 400, 5. So they have to gear them as well, like that. I would take the questions and I would put them in a Jeopardy grid and we would play the game. I did use all of the gamification game components, like
You have rules.
the
You've
rules,
got
yep, so there were definitely rules. There were definitely competing agents. They had to make, and the ambiguous decisions, I think, was really kind of funny to see how they would formulate their plan. Some kids went right for the 500s, but when you play Jeopardy, and if you answer 500 incorrectly, you deduct all those points. And they knew that, and they could hear each other kind of like, when they did the questions, because I put them in teams, like, what kind of question is this 500? Because as they were reading, they themselves were trying to find like this minutia or like, you know, like how are we going to trick them or trick them
Like you know,
up,
as a
or-
teacher, you'd never ask that
I would
question.
never
There's no
ask
way.
the question, but if they wanted to, and because they knew other people were doing the same thing, like they would be reading, like just 7 when it said, and they were really, really focused. So like, okay, if this is a 500 question, this could be like this really crazy question. And the end game, like the winners, and it was funny because we played it a couple times already. The first time I gave points on the test, and towards the end they're like, well, what are we gonna win? I go, I don't know. You know, the pride of being the best in the pack. Okay, that sounds good. So they enjoy it. So they don't like at that point. I found that they didn't even care. That they just liked playing it. They enjoyed it, and that it and you know, a job well done.
What age group was this?
This is freshmen.
Oh, okay.
And I have never had freshmen in high school, so this was kind of like it's kind of a whole new different animal for me. So so you can see all the rules and things. They're given 30 minutes, blah blah. So go down with that. So
Oh, we're going the wrong way. Sorry.
So the materials, I needed a piece of literature, paper for them to do notes, the smart board to put the questions on, and a Jeopardy template. And I also needed to create questions too, because you needed 25 questions, but a lot of the kids, because it was the main idea and the important thing, was they would have a lot of them the same. So when I would be putting them in, there'd be like 3 questions on a main character. So I'd have to put my own. The first time we played, I almost had a brawl because people, they were very competitive. They didn't like if someone, I used different classes and things, and if they didn't answer exactly as, when it pops up, they would say, no, it's not exactly the right one. You missed this word or you missed this thing. So after that, what I did was when I put the questions, I also wrote the students, in the answer, I'd say, Celine. So if there were any questions, I could say, Celine, did they answer this appropriately? And they would say yes or no. The final thing, reflections on the game, is one, I would definitely do it again, and I have done it numerous times because it is almost a quiet day where they read silently, they write their own questions. I know they understand the material, so it is. It's all the things that you need as a teacher. Do they understand? Yep, because here are the questions. Do they remember important information? Yep, because there are the questions. The things that I changed was I have I had the questions. I put their names on so that they can ask. And something else I saw too was that they were very, very. They were a lot more kind than I thought they would be. Because a lot of times they would be like, oh, just give it to them, just give it to them. That's close enough, or they got the main idea, or they got the gist of it. One question that came up was, kids would say, can I steal? And I did it the first game, but I did not do it again because it would be like Family Feud, you know what I mean? They answered 3 and they'd only need 1 more, and they get angry. They're like, we answered 3 of the 4, and they're gonna get all the points because they just got 1. So I stopped that. So now we play it Jeopardy as Jeopardy. If they get the answer, they get the points. If they miss the answer, points are deducted. So it did go very well.
Yeah, I like. It's interesting that you involve the students in helping to create the game too. I think that's a unique piece of that, having them, because your goal was to increase their focus on the reading. And so yes, they know they're going to have to answer questions, but having them be the ones digging into the text to find the questions, like you said, they're going to, and in their quest to find the hard questions, they're going to be coming across some of those little details.
Yes, that they normally, when they read, a lot of them just skip, they'll go to the back to see what the question is, and they'll only read to
Who died? Okay, that's all I need to know. Yeah.
So this way, since what are they going to ask? And they do, and they would really dive deep into that.
Nice.
Sometimes. So yeah, so it worked really well. The only thing I would say, if you were to do this, is there are a lot of Jeopardy templates out there. So I would recommend looking through and trying different ones because some are definitely better than others.
That's become a very popular classroom game is some version of Jeopardy. Does anyone watch Jeopardy? Have you all followed the story of this guy who now is over $1 million?
And other people don't.
He's a professional bettor, And what you were saying about the strategy, he's been very open about his strategy,
Yeah.
which is that he clears out the 500s first thing.
Yeah.
And then anytime there's a daily double, he just puts everything, he doesn't even think about it, just all in every time. And I don't know how many days he's won in a row now. He might overtake Ken Jennings, who was the guy that
Yeah.
held the record. But he's now got the top 2 or 3 single day takes of anybody on Jeopardy. And overall, he just passed $1 million that he's now won playing Jeopardy.
Well, with that too,
So-
like sometimes like we would play 2 games because if we had kids who did that, who would just pick the 5, like if you went first, if you got then you'd automatically win because if you got all the 500s, then you know you were already way. So now we'd have to like switch. Like okay, you went first this time, you get to go first this time. Otherwise, and they're big about fair. Like it's
Yeah.
gotta be fair. Like they're crazy.
Oh, yeah,
about,
yeah.
"Right."
All right, very nice. All right, so yeah. Let's see. So Tanisha's not here. So Jimmy.
Yeah, all right. So mine is kind of going along with this time. Kind of behavior was the issue. So our school in Bristol, our middle school, posted a pilot schedule, which is different than the schedule that we normally have. And what the schedule does is kind of more like a junior high or a high school where the kids get to go off into the school. They all have different classes at different times, and they come back to you. They could be in wellness or like gym, or they could be in social studies. And usually we're on a pod. So there's 5 teachers, social studies, English, math, science, and a special ed room, all in a pod, like right next to each other. So kids were never with them. So now that we kind of turned it into a high school schedule, they took advantage of it. They're like, oh, I'm across the building, so I can't get here. And we give them a 3-minute
Yeah.
time period for transitions. Like, I can't get here in like 3 minutes, Mr. Ryan. Like, I can't get here that fast. Okay, all right. So it started to become an issue because, you start your lesson and kids are now 5 minutes late as opposed to be, on time, or 10 minutes late. And I got to write kids up if they're late. I have to ask them if they have passes. And the kids are very combative. And it turns into like, they'll walk out of my room, or, they'll be like, I don't have a pass. Like, what does it matter? So it becomes like this huge battle. So like, I have to somehow change this because it's ridiculous. So what I did, and I kind of started this earlier in the year, and I have kept it going, and I kind of modified it for this, is on my smartboard, to help me with attendance, before what attendance, I had the kids have all their names for all the classes, and they would come in and they click on their name, and it goes away. So I can see exactly who is absent on my smartboard, like first thing. So I don't have to waste the time of like checking off to see if they're here. So I've been doing that all year. So I kept that. And I put a timer for 3 minutes after each class. And I told the kids, you're going to compete against each class. And at the end of the week, on average, whatever class has the highest percentage of timeliness and punctuality, the following Monday we get there at 7:50 and homeroom doesn't start till 8:05. So those 15 minutes we'll go down to the gym and have gym time, or we'll watch parts of a movie if you guys want, or a TV show, whatever. They love that. They really want to be on their phones, but I refuse to let them. So I'm like, be active, or maybe we'll watch it. So it worked pretty well. The only problem is they were so into it, and like I really appreciated their enthusiasm. They were sprinting.
I was gonna say I could see
yeah.
kids like, get out of my way.
I actually had a couple teachers email me
Oh,
most
boy.
of his names that were like continually sprinting in the hallways.
Oh, geez.
So I had to. The kids were mad. They're like, this teacher's yelling at us. Like, you told us we could do this.
Yeah.
That's for my master's program, guys. I kind of addressed that, and that was cool. I kind of told the teachers, like, I talked to them, they can't sprint, but I told them what I was doing, and I said, I'll address it. But I appreciated how they wanted to be there, and it worked miraculously. I mean, one of my classes, I had almost half the class coming in anywhere from 2 to 10 minutes late every day. No matter like phone calls, office referrals, like did not change behavior, phone calls home, all that stuff. And I went from, I think what I put on there was like 16 out of 28 kids, 27 out of 28 were coming on time. So there's a couple kids who were like too cool for school, who were like, I'm not playing that game, it's stupid. So there's a couple kids that didn't really conform, but most kids were like super about it. And I did it I had break this week, so I did it last week for the 4-day week, and I did it on Thursday instead of on Friday. So when we had back from break, I I have my first class and I go to the gym on Monday, so they're all psyched up about it. So it works pretty well, despite some kids almost getting in trouble by their teachers. It got them all psyched up. And again, I have a little bit of like an internal struggle with it because it's such a simple expectation. I don't want to reward you for that. You should just be expected to come to class on time. But I can't say that it didn't work. It did work, and it increased my attendance and punctuality. But I wish there was another way without having to reward you because kids aren't going to get rewarded for everything like growing up.
Yeah.
You have to learn to do
Yeah, we
something,
do it as a service.
right. It's like a toss up.
Yeah.
Like if you were going to your job, they're not gonna say, hooray, you get extra time.
Yeah, I mean, it would be.
Basketball for
You get
15
dance
minutes
time.
work.
It would-
I would do that.
I mean, it would take a certain amount of stamina to track something like this over several years and to see whether, if you
10
introduce
years
it
from now.
at a very, like lots of reward, and then see over time what you could do in terms of reducing, at what point does the intrinsic motivation kick in? The extrinsic
Or
motivation
does
is
it?
not.
Well, they always expect like, wait a minute.
Well,
I
that
get a prize for coming in?
right.
Like,
That would be the thing. Like, I'm sure people have done research on transferring extrinsic to intrinsic motivation and at what point that happens. And
You're doing that
'Cause-
dog training thing where like every time your dog comes, when he's a puppy, you give him a
Yeah.
cookie or a hot dog.
right, but
And
then
when they get
eventually
older,
they
it's like,
just
"Come here."
right, and they don't need the. I mean, a pat on the head is good enough at that
you're
point.
not getting
So
a hot dog every time you
My
walk
mean-
over.
question was
First
like,
of all,
how long do I do this until a gym timer movie becomes old and you're like, well, I don't really want to do that anymore, so I don't really care about coming to class on time. So would I have to change the prizes
Right.
to keep them engaged in it, or would that work, for the remainder of the year or for the entire year?
Yeah.
One thought that I have about that too is I guess you could, because they're a little bit older, like 8th grade, so they're not like super young. But you could throw the data in their face. You could be like, look, you guys can do this. So you have no excuse not to do this because this is what the data shows. You can do this. You can make it to class on time. So now I know you can. So then you could, then I guess maybe you could imply like now I'm going back to, 3 strikes you're out, then you're gonna get a detention because you have evidence they can do it, so they can't give you an excuse anymore.
Right.
Like I can't make it, it's too long.
yeah,
10 minutes though, they walk in 10 minutes late.
Well,
That's like a cut.
That's a specific
Oh,
child.
okay.
But yeah, that specific kid has a tough
Yeah.
time, but
Yeah.
that's like the latest. That's like we've had that conversation.
Yeah.
You're cutting, like,
yeah. We have
cutting
students
back.
that there could be a direct hallway from that classroom to your classroom,
Yeah.
and yet it's what was it Dennis the Menace? Not one of the cartoons. Oh, Family Circus, I think it was.
Oh, yeah.
That always had. They would always show like the kid like would go all the way around the neighborhood and do every little thing, and then they're like, "What? I came right here," but they had done like 50 things on the way there, and what can you do? So, all right, cool, nice. All right, up to Brian with an
So I
I.
do have a video that we can show in a minute.
Oh, okay.
I'll
Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
So I had to take a little bit different twist. I think you're all aware that I'm not a teacher. I made that clear a number of
Good for
times.
you.
And I
You
get
don't know
attention
how much
of, people say, oh, well, do something for work. I'm all done giving things to work for free. I don't care if they're reimbursing me for a portion of the classes. I'm only doing it so I can get out of there. So I'm not doing stuff to make meetings more efficient or get people to show up and play basketball work or something.
They do that there too.
So I spun around a little bit, tried to come up with a different spin on it. So my kids take a CrossFit Kids class once a week, and you can tell by looking at me now, but I used to be a CrossFit Kids coach a few years ago, and I think we all can agree that burpees suck. The sickest among us, possibly the gym teachers, would say that they're not intrinsically evil exercise. So, and having done, burpee challenges and seeing the workouts that the kids go through, I know that that's one that always gets the groans out of people when it comes up. So I went and I approached the coach where my kids go and said, I'd like to do an experiment here. What I'd like to start with is, what I'm trying to see is if we add gamification to a burpees challenge, will we see an increase in the performance of the kids? So what I started with was, for round one, 1 minute round, we're just going to say, you're going to do burpees for a minute. When you think you're done, go ahead and sit down, write down your number. We're not going to show you the clock. We're not going to be cheering you on. We're just going to kind of, there's no external motivation. They weren't competing against each other necessarily. They were all in the same room together, but
You got a baseline.
you got a baseline. So, and then I brought the kids back together and I said, okay, and now I'm going to introduce my gaming concepts. So I ended up adding rules, competition, as well as an end game. So what I ended up doing was pairing the kids off, telling them that they would be competing against each other to do as many burpees as they could within a minute, and do another minute now, with the end game being that the winner of each pair got to throw 2 water balloons at me. And the loser would only get to throw 1. I had intended to do 3 in 1, but some of my water balloons popped on the drive over, so I had to go with what I could there. So restarted the activity. Ended up having 52% increase across the group. Some kids, one kid went up 167% between the first minute and the second minute. I mean, I told the kids afterwards and said, did you feel more motivated, to do more burpees once you knew you could throw water balloons at me? And they all agreed. So I mean,
They did not like you.
I know, who doesn't like to throw a water balloon at an adult when you're a kid? You're like, yeah.
We can go ahead and start the video, and I'll just kind of wrap up while we're doing that. But, and it does have audio.
Sound, yeah.
Oh.
Good.
There we go.
Can't pass up a chance to use the Benny Hill song.
Oh, yeah.
So I mean, obviously, this was a very specific example. Change rewards. Even, I mean, that's the same double speed or 8 times speed, whatever it was. You can see them moving that much faster between the first and the second.
Yeah.
So I mean, it definitely had.
Oh, man.
Those
You
car-
have to go for your face, Brian.
Strategically placed.
And then it comes my son. That's my son. Yeah.
Oh.
He's taking way too much.
That's
That's
nice.
awesome.
That's good.
Using Microsoft Sway.
That's.
Or is that the
that's my
next?
video.
Oh, that's the next
last
video.
night.
Oh, okay. From I was gonna say, tying things together.
So yeah, I mean, I think it worked pretty well. I mean, there's obviously different ways to do it without having to punish the coach or the teacher. But I mean, by adding the game elements, by just telling the kids do them in the burpees, yeah, it's not that much fun. But I mean, you add that game element to it, you can take an exercise that's less motivational and add that competition.
And then they also get some extra exercise in throwing and.
see how often most of their arms were. I only got hit by like 3 balloons.
Yeah, there you go. It's a low. Have you seen the ones, we started getting these where you like blow up 50 at a time?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that was that?
Those things suck. They do
Yeah.
not pop.
Oh, yeah?
They hurt too.
Oh, we've had pretty good luck with them,
I mean,
but
you really gotta feel them good. I mean, like,
yeah.
so
Yeah, it's a single thing, a single hose connection.
But with all these arms.
It's got like 50 little straws that come off of it, and each straw has a balloon rubber banded onto the end. So you put it on the hose, you turn it on, all of them fill at the same time. You have like a big container or something, and they get to a certain fill, and you literally just kind of shake it once, and they all drop off the ends, and the rubber band holds the balloon, so you get like 50 balloons at once. I mean, cost per balloon is definitely more, but when you've got little kids and you need to blow up a ton it's like 50 at once, boom, there you go, run around the yard, and so, but
Noodles. Whoever came up with the pool noodles. They gotta be
Yeah.
a zillionaire.
yeah,
And they're nothing.
Good luck.
yeah, good luck. Yeah, I know at our school, like, one of the rewards is sometimes you get to tape one of the administrators to
Well, they're
the
doing
wall.
that at our school tomorrow.
Yeah, you're like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
You buy, it's
you
for
buy, yeah, it's a,
fundraiser now.
yeah, they'll, so,
50 cents a yard or something.
Like
off the
They-
ground.
Oh,
like, you put 'em on a-
No.
They'll cut him loose the next morning or so, you know.
And blue, right?
Yeah.
Rhodium
Yeah.
blue?
So, all right, yeah, nice job. So, all right, let's see, where are we? Let's see, Sarah already went. So, Brian with a Y.
All right, so
Back to back Brian's.
mine is very behavior based, just like a lot of other people. And I'm not a teacher per se, but I work in school and paraprofessional. I'm dealing with all special ed kids, and they're basically they're educational deficient as well as behavioral as well. And so I came up with a game to kind of address those behaviors as they come into a certain classroom. There's one classroom, it's a social studies classroom. There's all special ed kids in it, and they're all expected to do a certain amount of things within the class. So my activity had to happen like behind basically what the teacher was teaching, so in the background basically. And so I addressed 4 things, and it was preparation before class, and checking through a classroom, instruction and abiding by the rules of the class, and then also homework and classwork if there was any in the class. And each one of them had certain points attached to it, and I basically just monitored the students throughout the class if they got those certain points, and it would range from I think it was the instruction rule abiding was worth 250 points, so if they would still get credit even if they didn't do it entirely throughout the whole class. If they did a little bit, they would still get credit, they would still get a couple of points, and these points would add up throughout the week, and they would be able to redeem them at the end of the week, and they would be able to pick from the prize box, or they would be able to do a lunch with a teacher or something like that. And I had 3 levels of prizes. It would range from 1,000 points, 2,000 points, to 3,000 points. And I had prize boxes for each one of those areas. And out of the class, it was 13 students, and I think only 2 of them ended up getting a perfect score of 3,000. But in that class, there's different behaviors within the class. There's better students that excel, and other students that are not there yet. And in this activity, there was ambiguous decisions because the students would choose whether to, abide by the rules or focus on the teacher and prepare for class, or they wouldn't, basically. So we either yes or no. And then the end game was the prizes, and then I had some rules for the amount of points and the things that they would be looking for in order to gain points. And so the students really liked using points to determine whether they got rewards and things like that. Because for a lot of the students, they have behavior plans, but they're not necessarily they get rewards, but they're not points based. Kind of like they just check it off with the teacher, and then the teacher determines whether they get the points or not. They can, with this activity, they can determine if they get the points because they know whether they get the rewards, they know the amount of points they have at the end. And there wasn't really a competition per se within this game activity, but some students did end up seeing other students get to pick prizes, and then they were kind of jealous. So then that in kind of a way got them more motivated to try again the next day for better prizes.
Did you have a sense or any way to measure sort of pre-activity versus post-activity in terms of?
I mean, it's different because it's different days. So students can have a good day or they can have a bad day. The students that I work with, they can have a good day like tomorrow, and then the next day it could be completely downhill.
Yeah.
But for the students that were able to succeed, I did see improvement from them. They did see more focus in class. And then another thing, abiding by the rules was a big one. They, with the phones thing as well, they kind of abide by that better than in the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Very good. All right, Tommy.
Alright, so mine is called, actually you can take that down because I haven't actually updated it. I changed
Oh,
it
okay.
2 days ago, it's a little different. But I changed it because my 4th grade students are really struggling with push-ups, more so than I've seen in a while. So I figured, I would try to encourage them to go home and do some push-ups during commercial break of their favorite TV show or something like that. That's what I would normally tell them to do. But I tried to make a game out of it this time and see if I can increase their push-up score on the test by giving them kind of a game to go home and play against other kids and to see if that would work. But the problem is I really didn't have a lot of time to implement it because I was on vacation last week and we just got back into school yesterday, so I kind of sent them home with some directions and saw what they did with it. And my directions were to just go home and do as many sets of 10 push-ups as you can, with 100 being the max amount that you can do. I didn't get the results I wanted. In fact, and then I said, as a reward, because their first question as fourth graders, well, what do we get for it? You know? And I'm like, well, I have some keychains and I have some sports stickers. And they're like, okay. And so they came back the next day, which was today. So I just got the information back and I've been very busy up until right now. So basically what happened was 5 of the 30 that I gave the assignment to did it. And they came in, and one did 330 push-ups last night. I was like, that wasn't the rule. It was and he like wrote down all the sets. He was so pumped about it. I gave him a keychain. He was
I gave him a keychain.
And then,
I was on the keychain like.
yeah, I'm like, how can you achieve right now?
I was gonna say, like, he couldn't even like pick the keychain at that point. Like, arms are totally blown out.
Got a call from his dad.
But one girl did it perfectly, and she even said, I couldn't do sets of 10, which is totally fine. A lot of them can't do sets of 10, and I should have actually made that a stipulation. If you can't do 10, do as many as you can in a set, and see if you can get up to 40 or 50 or give it an arbitrary. But one did, she said, I did 20 sets of 5. Is that okay? And I was like, that's great. You know, you're getting better. That's what we want. And that was really the main goal, is to motivate kids to do more push-ups on their own. Obviously, we're going to do push-ups every day when they come to class for warm-ups. But there's only so much you can increase by just exercising, a couple times a week.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if I had to do it differently, or I would do it throughout the week and make it like a weekly challenge. And also, I was talking to the kids today about it. I said, do you think you'd be more likely to do it if I paired you with kids that scored in like a similar range as you, and maybe you guys can push each other. So like 3 to 5 kids that only average, 6 push-ups in a row, or 6 to 10 push-ups in a row, and they can push each other. How many did you do last night? Oh, I did 63. Oh, I did 75, or whatever.
They are so competitive, they really are.
They really are. So I think that it will work in the future if I just make kind of some adjustments. Like I said, I didn't have a lot of time to implement it, but
Mm-hmm.
I think that it could work.
Yeah, I like that idea of grouping. If you've got baseline data, of sort of grouping similar, because same thing as you were saying you had the app that paired
Oh, yeah.
students up by ability.
What's it called?
TJ.
I don't have that.
It's like 99 cents. I'll show you.
Tommy,
Does your school?
I remember when we had to pay $300 for software. Now kids
I
can
got
play.
kids, we do this thing at our school, it's called the Kids Marathon, and the kids, they have to do it outside of school, but they'll log how many, miles they did per day, and they're supposed to start out,
Such
doing,
a
a quarter mile, and then a half mile, and build their way out, but, I get kids that come in, how'd you do this? I did 23 miles last night. No, you're a liar.
You did not run a marathon last night.
Good.
Yeah. That's when you put your Fitbit on the dog and then make the dog run around the yard for an hour.
Ooh, guilty of that.
So-
Tommy, how did you deal with integrity?
Okay, awesome question, because everyone's like,
Did you have
what if
parents
they cheat?
sign
What
off?
if people cheat? The one that did 100, I had a parent sign off who did
Yeah.
5 sets of 10. I was like, wow, she watched 20 sets of 5 push-ups. Like, your parents are, that's a good mom. Or did she just sign it?
Maybe she was sitting there while she was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know a lot of my parents would take care.
I know, yeah.
Faster. Most of the students did
That's true. They weren't willing to
Can
work
they-
down fake
I mean,
numbers.
I don't know what
Just
sort of access to technology, but like, they shoot a video of themselves doing it and submit the video or
That would be a good idea too.
something like that.
They have their phones.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I know at our school now the students are all 1-to-1, so nobody's got an excuse anymore. They've got a little, laptop, tablet device that has a camera on it. So we started doing that like for music evaluations, where the students just make a recording of themselves playing through a piece
Yeah,
and just send it in.
that's actually a good idea
So-
because, some kids may do 100 push-ups, but with what form?
Right. Yeah.
So maybe that's a good idea.
A way to verify or something. Okay.
That's all I got.
All right. Let's see. I guess Earl, you're up next.
So my problem practice was essentially overall motivation for class. I teach digital game design, so like video game stuff. And surprisingly, as awesome as that sounds, it's actually a really lot of hard work. And there's some pretty intense software, and the kids have to do
Is this
quite
high
a lot.
school?
High school level, yeah. And the problem also with it is that it lasts so long that they start to lose any sight of the project or the end goal, and that becomes a real sort of, it just goes downhill towards the end. So after we learned about Classcraft, I decided to put that thing into play and see how it would work. And I was kind of skeptical about it. I didn't think the kids would buy in because it was kind of goofy. But they totally bought in. And it's kind of a strange section of students, so I had the feeling that a few would probably buy into that, but the entire class bought in. I restructured a lot of what I was doing quarter 4. This is our last quarter. So I was able to line up all of the quests so far with what they're doing. I tested it the week before we went on break, which was not last week, but the week before. So the week before that, I tested it. They were all super into it. It was ridiculous. I was a little worried about them. So I decided to get the premium. I got the premium account, which is $100 a year. But it gives you access to a bunch more things. So each of the kids makes their own little avatar, whatever. And it keeps track of behavioral stuff, academic stuff, and we've been doing it ever since, and the results are stupid good. I had kids, someone else was saying it, who were late to class, almost every single day of the year, are showing up 2 minutes ahead of time, what are you doing here? And they're like, oh, I didn't want to let my team down, I didn't want to lose points. Really? You've got a fake avatar on a website now, and you're here on time? It was literally crazy how well it worked. For the phone thing, I can deduct HP from the character if they're on the phone. So I see the kids look up, smile at me, and put it away. Because they pull up their thing immediately when they get in, and they want to see how they're going to do. So there's teams, so they're kind of competing against each other, which means they're also helping each other out, which is huge. They're giving each other answers. They're even helping the other team. They're like, hey, if I help this team, do I get blah blah blah? I'm like, just go help them, man. Why is this a thing? What it is?
What do I get?
Yeah, what do I get?
What do I get? I just hit the XP button, and they're super psyched. and happy. We had our first boss battle today, which is a test, but it's called a boss battle. So I'm like, all right, guys, we're having a boss battle today. And they all hopped up out of their seats. They're like, whoa, yeah! They start screaming. They gather around, and I'm like, if I told them we were having a test, they would have mutinied right away. So they were all about it, and they're like, if they get answers correct, it does damage to this boss, and if they get it wrong, they get damaged. But other people on the team can help them out. It's pretty amazing. You have to kind of put a good chunk of time into it. So you kind of have to quest out all your assignments and break down assignments and do the whole thing for it to run smooth. And it's the type of thing that I'd imagine if you don't stay on top of it, it will fall. You might lose them if you don't keep up with their sort of level of achievement too. But I've had unbelievable results so far. So I'm interested, Jimmy was saying, is there a point where it's all right, the
novelty's
nuance
worn
of
off,
it, the
yeah.
coolness of it wore off, and we're not buying into it anymore. I'm interested to see how that works.
Is it a one semester class or a full year class?
It's a full year class, but I was having some not super results with the two teams this year. In the past, I've had great results. It depends on the dynamic of the kids because the prereqs to the class are digital design and or computer science. So I have kids coming in who are sort of code centric, and I have kids coming in who are design centric, like art centric. So it's a funny balance. So sometimes it works really well, sometimes it doesn't work as well. And even the kids who come in knowing quite a bit in their area, it's still pretty, it's high level software and stuff. So it takes them a lot. And the other thing is it's hard because everyone's doing such a different job that they get kind of lost in it, or they don't know where to go, and it's hard to essentially make a different class for 18 different kids. So for me to break it down and put more of a quest in there and then start to build up their ability to sort of go out and find tutorials on their own, I'm sort of sneaking that in. So I'm putting in quests that are not mandatory, but like I don't give as much directions to them. It's like, oh, you have to do this thing to get extra bonus points, but I'm not step by step. Like there's no step by step there. You have to find your sources. You have to find your research. So that seems to be working too. So far it's so good. I thought about trying it with a different class. Some kids from other classes have been like, hey, what's this thing these guys are doing? We want in, but I'm not sure. I feel like if the whole class doesn't buy in, it kind of falls apart.
Yeah. I wonder because of the nature of the class you're teaching,
Oh,
it's such a great fit because
Right.
they're kind of seeing a practical application of the very thing that they're there in class to learn about, you know.
Cool. Yeah.
So they're getting some interesting
these
feedback.
quests are like assignments that you
Yeah.
put into the program.
So I put in assignments, and I'm messing with it now because there's different options. But like, so right now we're doing like landscape, like 3D landscape creation in the engine software that we're using. So their first quest was to like build a landscape using the landscape tools, and then their next quest was to build a landscape material so that they could paint the landscape, like paint textures onto the 3D landscape.
And then like they show you that and you put in that they
Screenshots
achieved it.
They can submit
Oh, okay.
assignments, and I have options on whether or not like they can move forward regardless of if they pass that quest or not, or I can hold them up, or if I can make it so that if they don't pass, they go a different route, which might mean they have to do
A longer one,
couple
yeah.
quests, so that I know by the time they catch up, they've gotten the things I need. Which is it's a pretty amazing package if it fits with your class.
Yeah.
So
Huh.
I was pretty psyched about it. And if you want to see, I can pull up later my like login and show you how it works better.
Yeah, that's great to see, having come across that as a
Yeah.
example, to actually see it in use.
They had a Fortnite one, they'd like it even more.
Yeah, maybe. I'm so surprised how much they bought into it. They like make the little characters. And, like,
Yeah.
Some of them were like amped to get a pet in the game. So they're
Yeah.
it's cool.
All right.
I'm into it, you know.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. Yeah. All right. Melissa S.
I know.
So originally I wanted to do, I have a problem with a warm-up like Steve does. We do for physical education, we do a warm-up every day. Unlike you, there are 5 classes that are on in the gym at the same time. Yes, it's a lot. So I originally kind of kicked that around, and then what I did arrive at was the physical fitness tests. You were talking about how poorly your guys do on push-ups. So our guys do poorly on everything. I'm not sure. Not sure really. Even the sit and reach where you go like this, it's lack of motivation. I don't know. Whatever you want to call it. Yeah, whatever you want to call it. So since I'm on with 5 other people, I kind of pitched it to my other coworkers. We do a pre-test for our fitness tests, and then we do our final result, which is the post-test. And we wanted to keep track of which period improved the most. So we've entered all our pre-tests. So we've done half the work already. We do half the work already because we have to enter our pre-test anyway, it's required for our job. We have an Excel spreadsheet that kind of calculates passing scores and what have you. So it's a battle between our class periods. We have 5 class periods, and we have to see which period will have the greatest gains. And for that class period, the reward will be a week of activities of your choice. We have a pool, you can go swimming, you can, play basketball, you don't have to go to health that particular way. We teach health and phys ed. They don't care for health either. That's another game. So I guess that's another assignment, I don't know what to tell you. So, unfortunately, I don't have results because we had SBAC testing. We were supposed to test this week, but we have the SBAC, so it's gonna be pushed back. So I don't have results for you, but I know that our pre-test, their scores are in there. The competing agents are the classes that are versing each other. There's some ambiguity because the classes don't know. Sometimes they
What
kind of,
people's original scores were?
yeah, and sometimes they bag it on their pre-test and go like, I'll have this huge jump, and sometimes they go all out, so they don't know that it was a competition before. Let's see, what did I say? The competing agents are the classes. The end game is the fitness testing. Like I said, we have 4 or 5 on at all times. So those classes are actually competing as a class period to try to really do their best on the fitness tests. Did I answer all the questions?
So you'll have, it's sort of in process or
In
will
process,
be in
yes.
terms of, okay, yeah, if in either of our last 2 classes you get some results, just, feel
I'll
free
throw 'em
to
out there.
fill us in, yeah, so, all right, cool. And let's see, I think Sandy, actually you're up last, because I think both Kathleen and Milka are not here
Last
tonight,
again.
so I should go back, I should go backwards
sometimes.
one of these times, because the same people, always go first and always go last.
Okay, my problem is I want the kids to learn vocabulary, but I want them to be able to speak the vocabulary. So not just learn it, but speak it, like when they're talking to me instead of saying, oh, this is a wonderful picture, I want to say why, or, if they're asking a question, specifically what it is with the art vocabulary. So I'm always trying to come up with these art vocabulary games, and you were saying how you wonder how long it's going to last. I find that a lot of these gamification things, for me, they last for a little bit, and then they get bored of them. So I always try to rotate it so that they get a little spice of change of scenery. But in any case, for this one, I don't know how I feel about it. At first I was excited because I wanted to do something that was close to like Balderdash. Anybody ever play Balderdash? Where because it's funny. I mean, my son and I, we always make up answers, and that should have clued me in right there. But because we always make up silly answers to try and fool people. Well, guess what? The first time I tried this, I had pairs of kids, and that wasn't good. I changed it. I did it again, and I'll tell you the first part. But the first time it was pairs, and what I did was I put paper on their desk, and I gave them the vocabulary word, and then they had to write down the answer, and they wrote down the group number, and then they would hand it back into me. And then I went and told all the kids, I held the cards, and I said, okay, group number 1 said this, group number 2 said this, or I didn't say group number 2. I had to rename the card, that's what it was. I had to rename the card because I didn't want them to know which groups were saying what. This is getting confusing because I'm not feeling good, so it's like, I don't know if I'm telling it in order or not. But I didn't want them to know, so I would say, okay, group B, when it was really group number 1, group B said this, group C said this, or not group, but, all right, yeah. You get what I'm saying?
I get what you're saying.
All right. Yeah, it didn't work because, it worked and it was okay, but it was a lot of work for me because I was tallying it on the board and I was trying to keep, in line. And then not only that, but there were a lot of silly answers when I really wanted them to learn the vocabulary. So they're allowed, but once they got the hang of, oh, I can put a silly answer, they started really putting, so, and that's all it was. So, so I know, and I was like, come on, guys, So I had to think about it, and I went back today, down the bottom there, and I played it with 4 groups of like 4 or 5, which worked out a lot better, and I turned it into a true-false multiple choice thing instead. So instead of giving me answers, what I did was I asked the questions, so I couldn't get the ambiguity in there anymore. So, my components ended up being just, that there was a game, they were competing against each other, and then there was an end game with a treat. Okay, Jolly Ranchers wins everything. So, for the last one there, what I did was I did the groups, and then I would say, okay, which artist painted the Mona Lisa? And then I said, A, Claude Monet, B, Leonardo da Vinci, C, Vincent van Gogh. So they would have to write down A, B, or C. And then I would say, okay, hold up your cards. I said, don't hold up your cards until, I say hold up your cards, because otherwise they're going like this and they're all looking at each other's answers. So I said, okay, hold up your cards. This was a lot better this way because they were coming up and sitting down and coming up and sitting down. I said, hold up your cards, they go like this, and I look really quick and I say, you got the right answer. If it was a true false, if it was a false, for instance, I made them give me the right answer. And I got that from us.
Our
From
game.
our little game. Yeah, somebody gave us that little tidbit the last time we were talking. But so it worked out much better today. The kids seemed to enjoy it more. I actually almost had a brawl too. Because they're so competitive. This one little boy, 6th graders, he was freaking out. I was like, geez, take it easy. It's just a game, kid. So yeah, we played to 10, and then I actually did a little bonus question at the end where they had to write down, because a lot of my questions were based on color and color wheel, and the bonus question at the end was write down as many vocabulary words as you possibly can related to color, and so they ended up, you got 2 minutes, go. So they were all writing down, and then the winner person, whoever got the most, won a prize. So
You had them in teams, groups?
they were in groups of 4 or 5. Yep.
That sounds like a place where Plickers. Now that we know what Plickers is, that could have.
Yeah, and I'm still working on it because I think it could be good. I just want to. My other game, the one that I wanted to do, you said I couldn't because I already did it, is that crumble and shoot where they have to hold up their card of the answer, and then the team that does, they get up and shoot a basket. They have a lot of fun with that one, and they get 1 point, 2 points, 3 points. So and then I keep track of the points, and they get, of course, a Jolly Rancher. But it was fun.
Yeah.
I'm still working on it though. I'm still trying to come up with ways to make it a little more fun. But they seem to have a good time. I don't know. It was boring to me though. I want to have a good time too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
One of the thoughts that I was having is like just listening to everybody. I guess besides James, the kids went and put their stuff in themselves, but I feel like sometimes when you do a game, like it's additional work for you. You know what I mean? Because you have to monitor this, or you have to keep keep track of that.
Questions.
Like in terms of like the behavioral thing for me, like plus I did like individual, so like I had to like make sure I was aware of what people were saying when I might normally be helping a kid with he was out.
Right.
You know what I mean? Now I gotta be like, no, I'll deal with you later, and then I gotta pay attention to like other stuff,
And
so
even with mine, like where they're writing their own questions, and they're creating their own thing, and they're doing their own reading, I still had to type everything in. So it's
Yeah,
still
and I had
like,
to come up with multiple choice questions and true and false questions before I
and
did it.
create a few
It was
extra,
worth it though.
and
It was worth it though. And
Yeah.
not only that, but when you talk about comparing these types of games and after, since I've been playing games like this with vocabulary, I definitely notice a difference. The kids definitely will say vocabulary words that I sometimes I'm like, what would you just say? I don't know where to go, but
Hallelujah.
instead of pointing, in the room, they say it, so it's nice. Feels
Yeah.
good.
All right. All right. So that kind of wraps all this up. As long as what you have on the wiki page, and then also there was the original. Well, no, that was this. That's where I am right now. So that's what I'm going to be taking a look at. I have been running a recording here mainly because we do have a few people out tonight, and I wanted them to be able to chance to hear everybody's as well. But yeah, this is great. This piece of this class is something new. The gamification piece of it was not something they did in the past. And I thought it was important to get in because it is, I mean, yes, it is more work. I mean, anything we do in a classroom seems to create more work for us. But the nice thing about them is you can kind of scale them to whatever depth you want to take them. If it's just as simple as putting a timer on something or going all out and implementing an entire framework on a class with hit points and characters and avatars and quests and all that, you can kind of scale these things to whatever your resources are. You can scale them to the audience you're working with, to whatever group of students you're working with, age group, subject matter. So I think it's a nice set of tools to have, and it is something that has, I mean, the word gamification I think 10 years ago just didn't exist. That whole concept is something that now is more, like I said, in the business world. They're actually the ones that invented it, but they discovered that they could motivate people to buy more things or to come to their stores more by adding game elements, and that's really where gamification came from. But it works, really anywhere that you need to build in that motivational element. Sometimes just adding a little bit of game in can help provide that. So hopefully you enjoyed doing what you needed to do, that you got things out of it, that you've had a chance now to hear everybody else's, and like I said, maybe picked up a thing or two that you might want to try out. But any other final thoughts from anyone on this process or this type of activity? Good. It seems like people have a pretty good handle on it in terms of what it means now to gamify something and so on. So, all right. Well, it's 6:30. Let me just really quickly recap for next week. And actually, we're down to the final 2 weeks, if you can believe it. So next week, as hopefully is no big surprise, is the group game projects being due. So I'm anticipating 20 to 30 minutes-ish presentations from each group. So that should take us somewhere between an hour and a half and 2 hours, which seems reasonable. You'll want to bring the actual game in. As I said last week, if your group, for whatever reason, or somebody in your group wants to actually keep the game, I'll take them with me next week, but then bring them back the last week if somebody wants to take the game itself with them. If you're okay with me holding on to them, I would love to hold on to them, and then I've got them as examples for future years as well. But the main thing, in addition to having all the physical game elements, is the presentation piece of it, which I went over last week, but I put it here as well. The whole presentation, like I said, should be 20 to 30 minutes. Basically 4 topics in that time. First one is just describing the problem your group was trying to address. So that might even involve a little bit of because everybody made suggestions initially, you might want to talk a little bit about the different suggestions you had and how you settled on the one that you were going to actually use. Topic number 2 is then to kind of take it from that point, from where you decided what your topic was going to be, through the development phase of the game. So that could be talking about how did you decide what type of a game it was going to be, how did you incorporate the 4 different game elements into the game, maybe a little feedback from your alpha testing and beta testing weeks in terms of things that you learned that made you make adjustments to your game. So just kind of give us an overview of how your game evolved from that initial idea you selected to the actual finished product of the game. That will probably be the biggest piece of the presentation, I'm guessing. The third thing is then to actually talk about the game itself. Now at this point, half of the class has seen another game pretty closely, but the other half of the class hasn't seen your game at all. So kind of treat it like you're talking to a group of people who know nothing about the game. So you can show off the game pieces, talk a little bit about the gameplay. You don't have to actually play the game itself, but if you want to demonstrate something or do one single round or show off the cards or whatever it is, so actually present the game itself. And then the final piece of it is more kind of an overview reflection on just the process of doing it. You know, so how did your group work together? Did you find yourself dividing up roles? Were you all kind of equal in making decisions? Was there somebody who kind of took point on the game and then other people were supporting? Just kind of give us an idea of how your game company worked over the last couple of months as they developed this game. And, you know, especially if there were things you ran into that were maybe bits of roadblocks, how did you address those, and things like that. So, you know, it doesn't have to be this way, but with 4 topics and 4 people in each group, my thought was that you could divide it up so each person does one thing. If you feel like there's a better way for your group to divide up the presentation, feel free to do so. But the idea is just to cover those 4 topics. You don't really need to have anything like a video or a PowerPoint or anything like that. You'll have the actual physical game materials with you. If we want to pull up any of your instructional design paperwork, we can do that. But I'd really rather focus on just the actual discussion and the presentation. You know, as you all probably know, having gone through lots of presentations with PowerPoints, basically what people end up doing is staring at the PowerPoint, and the people presenting end up just sort of pointing at the PowerPoint and reading what's on the board. So I'd rather have us just be a little bit more organic with the presentations. You can certainly have notes if you want to, or some sort of a structure, but that'll be that. So at that point, the games are done. At this point, the gamification stuff is basically done. I'll talk a little bit more about this next week in terms of just what we're going to be briefly involved with in the final week. But now might also be a good time to just kind of go back, make sure that any of the forum posts that we've done along the way, that you've gotten in all of your entries there, just kind of go back through the work that we've done and make sure that everything's turned in. I think at this point I now have everybody's POW tunes. There were a couple people who still had to get them in, but I think those are all finished, and I gave those back to you guys last week, so you should have those back. But just kind of make sure that you've turned in all the material for the course, because obviously we're down to the last couple of weeks, and I'm going to be going through and starting to put all that stuff together for final grades. I start with everyone getting an F and then work it. No, I'm just kidding. No, I honestly, I'm a pretty easy grader when it comes to all of that stuff, so I don't think anyone should feel worried about it at all.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
The rules, like the digital rules or
Oh,
something.
yeah.
Where do we put those?
That's actually a good question.
Is there a spot we add them into the wiki?
Yeah, you know what? If they're
But
not,
I
you
don't
can
know,
just.
Can we
It's at
add?
the bottom of the wiki. It's,
Uh,
I think it's under that. And I think if you
we
put
go to the ID.
bottom, number 2, see it. says-
Oh, here we go. Upload. Oh, but that was just the copy of the actual, just the physical. But yeah, put it there. If you've got, if you're hosting the video on YouTube or something like that, just
We can embed it?
just either embed it or just put the link to it. You don't even have to
Okay.
embed the video, as long as I got something I can click on
Okay.
to see it. So yeah, I mean this here was really just a copy of the rules. Some people have just been typing the rules in, but that could also be a Word document or a PDF. But then also in that same place, put the video version of the rules as well.
Well, you know what? I think I tried to do that, because we had our rules typed out, but I couldn't put a document in there, so I had to copy and paste it in.
Oh, that
Because
might
of the
be
way the
because it's on
setup
the
was.
wiki. It may not allow you to attach documents to the wiki.
I think they did have an
Yeah.
option for an image, or
Yeah, unfortunately,
They did have
these-
an option.
Help us like next week.
They did have an option for image, because that's how the flow chart got in there, but
yeah.
I'm not sure, there
I
might
don't
be
think
one
it
for
can.
media, but there
Unfortunately,
wasn't
I
one
don't
for
think
the
they consider
document.
PDFs images, even though they are. Yeah, so the best bet might be just to copy and paste.
Okay.
Or I mean, the other option would be
Well, that's
again
what I did,
if
I just copy
if-
and pasted the rules in that spot.
yeah, the other
instead of
option
it
might be
printing
like
it
if you're doing the rules in like a Google Doc or something. just put the, share it and put the link in here. And then again, I can click on it and
Yeah,
and
I
go
already
to the
did it,
Google.
that's
So
all done. I'm just saying, I don't think you can put a.
you're right. I think documents you can't actually upload, but you can put links in.
I see anything. Hope you feel better.
Thank you.
So yeah, so that's basically next week is just about presenting the games. And the final week, as most of you know, is really going to be almost more about the 5:30 class than the 5:20 class. We will start by wrapping up 5:20, this class. And then anybody who's in this class who is not in 5:30 will be able to go. It's basically going to be, I just have some final things I want to go over, kind of review what we've done. We've got the end of course evaluations that everyone needs to fill out. So I don't know, it'll be like 30, 45 minutes or so. And then anyone who's not in 5:30 will be able to leave. And then the rest of us will stay to finish up the last two presentations on 5:30 and get in the evaluations for those. So for that last week, those of you who are only in this class, you'll only be here for half an hour, 45 minutes or so. All right?
Surprised they don't do those evaluations on the computer.
I am kind of too, especially because then it becomes a hassle because somebody else has to collect them. I'm not allowed to touch them. Dr. Abed did say we can just slip them under his door and he'll get them to the department secretary. Because I know most of you aren't here during the day to be able to walk them up to the department secretary and hand them in. So we'll get that taken care of. But so anyway, so we're basically done tonight. If any groups want to stay and do any final discussions or talks about anything, please feel free to do so. I'll stay as long as I need to or as long as you need me to. But whenever your group thinks it's got what it needs and is ready for next week, feel free to head on out and we'll see you guys next week.